Good afternoon, honorable members. We would like to request that honorable members kindly switch on the videos so that our colleague, Ms. Sephora from PCS can assist with framing, and ICT can assist with the virtual background if necessary. I see Honorable Pala. Can we ask Honorable Pala from Limpopo ANC? Honorable Monini from Mpumalanga. Kindly switch on your videos. Honorable Dlamini.
Good afternoon, it's Honorable Munini from Mpumalanga. I'm not sure if you can see me that side.
We can hear you, Honorable Monini, but your sound is also not quite there. Mado, can you assist? Can you try to switch on your video, Honorable Monini?
I switched on my video.
Let me see. Okay, hold on.
My video is on.
Okay, Mado, can you see? Honorable Monini. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, the other thing I know, ma'am, I won't be debating today. Most of the time my video will be off. I thought I should just
Honorable
say it.
Monini, I think you're muted now.
No, I'm not muted.
Hi, Shaida. Good afternoon, Honorable Nini.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm saying my video is on, and I was just saying in case you're interested, I will not be debating today.
Oh, okay, noted. Thank you so much, sir. You are actually okay. You're fine. We're happy with your framing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
There's still Honorable Pala. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Honorable Pala is on the question paper. Honorable Damini, thank you so much.
There'll be a moment of silent prayer or meditation.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, I would like to remind delegates that the rules, in particular, sub-rules 21, 22, and 23 of Rule 103 will apply. Honorable delegates, in accordance with Rule 2291, there will be no motions of notice or motions without notice. Honorable delegates, before we proceed to questions, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister from Peace and Security, Cluster 1C, that is the Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Minister Leon Schreiber, as well as permanent delegates, MECs, and all special delegates to the House. Further, I would like to remind delegates that in terms of Rule 229 of the Council rules, the time for reply by the Minister to a question is 5 minutes. Only 4 supplementary questions are allowed per question. A member who has asked the initial question would be the first to be afforded an opportunity to ask a supplementary question. The time for asking a supplementary question is 2 minutes. The time for reply to a supplementary question is 4 minutes. The supplementary question must emanate from the initial question. I now call upon the Honourable Minister of Home Affairs to respond to question number 150, asked by the Honourable J.S. Mananiso. Honourable Minister, you may come to the podium, and you have 5 minutes for your response.
Thank you very much indeed, Honourable Chair, and to the members of the National Council of Provinces. Always good to see all of you here. Thank you very much. This question relates to digital transformation in the work of the Border Management Authority, specifically in the context of recent progress that we saw over the Easter weekend. I think it's worth emphasizing again that digital transformation is the apex priority for us in this whole ecosystem. We like to think of the Department of Home Affairs, the Border Management Authority, as well as Government Printing Works as one ecosystem because they're all linked together with each other. And the golden thread that should make them more efficient in everything they do is digital transformation. By embracing digital technologies, the BMA specifically will be able to modernize border systems and streamline processes. This will be achieved by way of reducing manual processes that will lead to faster and more efficient border management. And important to say, perhaps since the last time I was here, that a lot of these wheels are now in motion. And some of the most important examples, I think, relate to the work that the BMA is doing. It has signed joint action plans with Mozambique, Eswatini, and the Kingdom of Lesotho on goods movement facilitated by the World Bank. And there are some specific technological innovations that we are now moving on. The first one, for the purposes of the BMA, is really the electronic travel authorization system that the President announced in his State of the Nation address. Basically, what this seeks to do is that before the end of this year, we want to automate tourist visas, so short-term visas. That'll obviously lead to a vast improvement in security, in the ability to verify whether someone actually holds a visa or not. But the real power of this will come when we're able to link it with automated entry and exit procedures at the borders. So for the purposes of that, I'm happy to share with members that we are engaging with the Minister of Transport because you will maybe be familiar that AXA actually has some electronic gates at some of our airports. And we are now looking whether we can get the BMA to partner with AXA so that we use those e-gates as the automated entry and exit points, beginning with our airports. So that will enable you to have a digital visa. You can scan it at the e-gate when you arrive, you look into a camera, and that verifies that you are who you say you are. That's really the first thing that I think we can look forward to. But I think also more broadly, we've seen the use of drones, of body cameras, and as the question specifically refers to the Easter period, we've seen a really dramatic improvement in our ability to detect people who are trying to enter the country illegally. It makes complete sense because if you just think about South Africa's vast borderline, a lot of it in very rural areas, inaccessible. Previously, you would have had to have physical people traveling along the borderline. And as soon as they left, you weren't able to continue surveilling that area. Now, because of the 4 advanced drones we have, including night vision capabilities, and even the capability through AI to distinguish between a person and an animal, they can actually track and pick up these kind of movements more effectively. So, Chair, I think that these are some of the critical interventions in the digital space that we are making. And maybe most importantly, these are no longer hypothetical. They are now in action along the border. I wish we had 40 drones instead of the 4 that we do have, but we are taking those and using them to the maximum effect that we currently can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now move on to the first follow-up question that will come from the Honourable Mananiso.
Thank you, Minister, and welcome to the House. Thank you, Chairperson. One would want to acknowledge your response in terms of deployment of digital innovation. And one can tell that I'm very happy that you emphasize on the fact that we still need manpower and as well the capabilities. Then my follow-up question to what you have said, Minister, I just want to check in terms of your appetite on issues of inclusion for gender transformation, gender equity, in terms of recruitment. What is your plan?
Thank you very much, Honourable Mananiso. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much for the follow-up, Honourable Mananiso. Briefly, just to agree with you that we have to look at the use of technology not as a trade-off. It's the way we empower our staff, actually, because at the moment they are undercapacitated. As I said, you know, the way we used to do things with surveillance just cannot cover a country this size. So it's not a matter of one or the other. You need both. And the best example is when you are able to use technology to detect an attempt to cross the border illegally, and then you can deploy your officials to go and make arrests. And that's really the recipe that we're following. In terms of gender inclusion, absolutely, these are contained in the APPs, in the targets of those plans. And I think I must share with you that when we launched these drones for the first time, I was particularly encouraged to see how many young female drone pilots there actually are. And I remember the lady who demonstrated to us how this machine works. Keep in mind, this is a very expensive piece of equipment. It's not a toy. But we're actually entrusting our young people, and in many cases, like with that female pilot, they are the ones leading the way in this new era. It makes sense. These are people who have grown up with technology. They are from a generation that's very much aligned with this. And so I'm very grateful to see that involvement. And I think maybe more broadly, the way in which we managed to move quickly on using and deploying the drones. We were a little bit concerned at some point that there could be licensing issues that would hold us back, but the BMA worked very hard with the Civil Aviation Authority to get that done in a timely manner. And so now we've got young people helping us with technology really from across the spectrum. And I think that really goes to show what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Billy.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and welcome, Minister, once again to the House. My follow-up to you, Minister, is in light of your earlier response and the importance of a well-resourced and technologically enabled BMA. Could you kindly expand maybe on how the ongoing digital transformation initiatives and other technological advancements are being tailored to strengthen operational capacity and efficiency at ports of entry, particularly during high traffic periods such as Easter weekend and the festive season?
Thank you very much, Honourable Billy. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Honourable Billy for the follow-up. So there are the there are the initiatives that are already happening, as I've mentioned, but then there are also some initiatives that we're looking forward to that will really continue to augment the capacity of the BMA. The one big one that's currently in process is that there's one final element of the BMA's mandate that needs to be transferred from the South African Police Service. So there's good cooperation between SAPS and the BMA now to engage, to make sure we get border policing functions that now reside with the BMA to actually align with what the BMA Act says. And that's going to help us build capacity because these are additional boots on the ground that we desperately need. But I think more broadly than that, there is a public-private partnership process that's underway. That will take some time, of course, but it is a very big and important infrastructure project for our country to redevelop the 6th busiest land ports in South Africa. So I think we will have an update on that soon. That process is running in collaboration with National Treasury and other stakeholders to actually improve the physical environment at these ports of entry. And so I think if you look a little bit down the line, we can say we've already made a difference. We've got some of these technological innovations that are helping us now. We're trying to bring in that additional capacity. But a little bit further down the line, we want to rebuild the infrastructure. And of course, the one-stop border post bill. Let me use the opportunity to lobby members now already that when that comes, that is going to be a transformational initiative for us. Because if we can redevelop the land ports, the physical infrastructure, and then we're able to have one-stop border posts where we partner with the neighboring country to make sure that a goods truck or a traveler will only interact once with customs, only interact once with immigration. You can take care of it all together. We're going to massively speed up trade and efficiency in the process. So those, I think, are some of the longer-term initiatives, but it's all a process. The foundation that we're building now is the one that's required if we want to get there. We need these basics in place. So I think that gives you a sense of where that picture is going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question will be taken by Honourable Makasini.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Greeting, Minister. Minister, it is disheartening that it is possible for the thieves to steal the cars and cross the borders without any detection of the stolen car, despite the cars have been reported. What steps have you taken to innovate a system that is able to detect the stolen cars or require tangible information if a driver are not the owners of the vehicles?
Thank you very much, Honourable Makasini. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is indeed a very serious problem. And there are a couple of different elements involved. The first one relates to some of our neighbours, and these are engagements that we need to have and that we are having to deal with the issue of what they call the innocent buyer. So in other words, someone in another country who buys a vehicle that was stolen in South Africa, who is then presumed to have been unaware or is innocent in the process. It makes it difficult for us to actually have that collaboration across the border because, again, something like a one-stop border post is going to help us with this because then you've got, if the car is being smuggled into Mozambique, you've got Mozambican officials with you, working with you, so that if you detect that this is a stolen vehicle, it's something that you can immediately actually solve with the counterpart. So we do need that better collaboration with our neighbors. But I think, again, investment into the BMA's digital infrastructure is important because what we found, and I'm sure members would have seen the launch of the digital transformation roadmap last week by the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, is that our systems are so unintegrated. They're so scattered in many ways. And what we really want to get to is having this integrated platform where all government services can plug into. One of the big challenges, of course, in this example is transport. The BMA needs to have accurate, live information about vehicle registration numbers, about the owners, so that it's all an automated process. A license plate camera must detect this is a stolen vehicle, and so that you automate that process. But we can only get there if we have that platform that really works together. So I think the combination of those two things, getting our neighbors to understand that they also have a responsibility to assist us. And we recently had a binational commission with Lesotho, where this issue was also raised sharply, including from our side, also by the police minister. So that is an ongoing conversation. But in the meantime, getting those platforms to talk to one another is going to be really essential for us to have the information to deal with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Majola.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. And thank you very much for your responses. Honourable Minister, there was an addition of 400 BMA of frontline officers that were promised in February. They has not yet been deployed, as you also indicated that the process is still unfolding. My question is, can you give us a timeline as to when the department is committed to train the additional officials to deal with the port of entry allocation to ensure that the adequate human resource is deployed there, and then they are also trained for the advanced equipment you mentioned? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Majola. Honourable Minister.
Chair, so I would like to suggest that we have a follow-up written question on this. It's a little bit different from the initial question, but I do know that there are, I think it was 400 junior border guards that have been deployed. So I just need to double check if you're talking about an additional allocation. So if we can just follow up on that. But we do have some of those junior border guards that have been deployed, and that's helping to augment capacity. I think in terms of the timeline, it's an ongoing process, Honourable Member. It's not something where we have to start on a certain date and stop on another date. So what is important is that as we bring in more people, that's why you need to have a culture there that is forward-thinking, that embraces technology, and that, of course, deals with ethics. So a lot of the work that's going on in the BMA, members will be aware that the BMA was really an amalgamation of different departments. So a lot of staff members from agriculture, home affairs, environment, health were integrated into this new entity. And one of the big challenges with that is that people bring different cultures. They are used to how it works in their department. So you have to create a new culture there. And sadly, the truth is, when people are used to corruption happening in their space, they bring that into this new organization. So that's why some of the disciplinary matters are actually just as important for creating an environment where if you bring in new people, you can trust that they're not going to fall into those patterns. So there are a number of those dismissals that have taken place, a number of cases that are still ongoing. But we're very much alive to creating that environment so that when you bring in new people, they must actually contribute. They must actually be able to use the technology that you are bringing online, and they must reflect the culture and values that you are looking for. An important step in this regard is that we have gazetted the regulations, the final regulations to empower the BMA. And there are important elements in that where we talk about the oath that people have to take. We talk about the code of conduct, the expectations that we have, because this is a third armed, or let me say law enforcement entity in the country, actually. So we do have an opportunity to build something new. But we have to overcome some of those old patterns, and that's where the disciplinary part is really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That concludes question 150. We now move on to question 145 that was asked by the Honourable Billy. Honourable Minister, your response to question 145.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I think this is a really exciting initiative that the Honourable Billy is asking about, and it relates to our intention, and I'm not sure if you've had sight of the APPs and the strategic plan that's obviously still in a bit of a draft process. But if you would have looked at those, you will see that one of our big milestones that we hope to achieve this year is to expand our cooperation with banks. I think colleagues will know that there are about 30 bank branches in South Africa at the moment where you can go and apply for your smart ID and your passport. The problem is that it's been at 30 for a decade now, and we need to actually move to get that into many more bank branches across the country. So we have there a pilot project that works. The challenge we've faced is how do we actually expand that and ramp it up. Now, the solution to that is, at the moment, the model requires a Home Affairs official, a Home Affairs computer, a Home Affairs fingerprint scanner, and a Home Affairs camera to be co-located in the bank branch. So in other words, you've almost got a small Home Affairs office inside the bank branch. And this has implications for space. The banks aren't all able to accommodate that additional infrastructure. But more importantly, we don't have the people and we don't have the budget to put a Home Affairs official in 1,000 bank branches across the country. So the way that we have resolved this, the way we are resolving it now, is to integrate the technology platform onto what the bank already has. Because if you go there, you'll see the bank already has trained officials, they have cameras, they have fingerprint scanners, they have all the equipment actually that is needed for this. And there's a very good reason, because the banks already use Home Affairs. If you open a bank account, they check against that very same system. That's why there are fingerprint scanners and those cameras in bank branches. So we are busy building an IT solution that will integrate the Home Affairs live capture system with the bank. It still gives us complete control over the process, because if the fingerprints or the face on the camera doesn't match our system, then you can't proceed. So we still control it. We still have the full power over whether someone actually gets a passport or an ID, but we're able to do it in a way that doesn't require so many resources. Now, members, the exciting part here is that I think if we can prove that this works, we could very quickly expand this service to hundreds of bank branches, maybe even 1,000 bank branches across South Africa. And you can just imagine the impact this will have on service delivery and on inclusion, and specifically, as the Honourable Billy refers, also to rural communities. Because you'll find the challenge at the moment is that people in rural areas have to travel a long distance to get to a Home Affairs office. Sometimes you might find 200 kilometers distance to get to a Home Affairs office, but in their local town or village or dorpie, there's 4 bank branches there, right around the corner. And we want to leverage that to make sure that we expand services much closer to where people actually are. The next step of this is, if we can get the integration in the branches to succeed, the logical next step is to have the applications on your smart device also integrated with live capture. Then you start getting to a very exciting space of people using technology to actually order the products that they need. And of course, Honourable Billy, let me also indicate that everything we do is a process. So we are trying to make sure that we have an end goal in sight. When it comes to immigration, we want to have automated digital visa systems, automated entry and exit. And so what we're doing now is taking one step after the other to get there. When it comes to civic services in South Africa, we want to deliver what the President has indicated also in his State of the Nation address in the form of the digital ID system, where the end goal is for users to have their ID, their birth certificates, and even other government products on your smartphone and on an online platform, secure and accessible. And you can even sign with that. You can confirm your identity using that. But in order to get there, we have to do these other steps that we're taking. We need to get more people access to smart IDs. We need to expand the number of bank branches we're working with. We need to build these IT platforms. And then we're going to ultimately end up with what I think will be a very different Home Affairs in a digital first environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for that in-depth response. The follow-up question, Honourable Billy.
Thank you, Minister, again. I think it really is quite an exciting initiative that you are embarking on, which is going to require a great deal of leadership, which you're already providing, Honourable Minister. Maybe just to add on what you've already alluded to, and considering the innovative intention to extend Home Affairs services to banking apps and digital platforms, can you perhaps share with the House the partnerships that you are considering and safeguards that are being explored to ensure that even digital banks, such as Time Bank and others, are also able to participate meaningfully in this service? Maybe just to expand on that, if there is an idea to extend that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Billy. Honorable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, so in terms of where the process is right now, we have engaged with all banks. We've written to them. Our technical people are engaging with the banks who have responded positively. We are engaging with their IT counterparts, because of course it's very important to get this platform right from the beginning. If you don't get the foundation right at the start, you will have people having bad experiences, and that's what we don't want. So we don't want someone to go and say, this new thing with the banks is not working, it's offline, it's all those things. So it's taking a bit of time for us to build that foundation properly. So the technical conversations and the work that's happening there is underway. But I think the intention is that we end up in the digital space. So if these are banks with physical branches in the beginning, it's logical, because that's currently how it works, that we want to expand that first. But the logical conclusion is that you'll have digital banks, digital applications that can also render the service. And of course, we want to end up with that one integrated platform for government. That's really what the roadmap for digital transformation is about, so that you can go at one click to a central government repository where you can have many more services at your disposal. I'm responsible for the Home Affairs component of that. I'm sure you'll grill other colleagues about getting their services onto the platform as well, but we're very much committed to ending up there. So again, along this journey, there are a number of these milestones and markers that we need to achieve so that we can end up there. You can't go from a country with 18 million green ID books as we have today, and tomorrow you have a digital platform. It is a reform journey. But all of the steps, I think, are taking us in the right direction. And I really hope that we will be able to make an announcement shortly that will show South Africans how this will work. I think it's very exciting to start seeing that government can actually do these things. You mentioned partnerships. We are cooperating through an updated MOU with the South African Revenue Service. I think I was in this house and indicated that they are really a role model for what we can achieve with digital government services. And since I was here last time, we've concluded that agreement. Again, it includes the whole ecosystem, BMA, GPW, and Home Affairs, working together to refine the systems and use the technical capacity that does exist within government. So I would say watch this space, but we are certainly working as fast as we can to end up with that digital platform. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question comes from the Honourable Advocate Nkosi Nkonyana.
Deputy Chairperson, honourable members, honourable Minister, good afternoon. Public-private partnership has been a key in our development agenda as a country for many years. And we're indeed pleased to hear that the ANC-led GNU continues to engage strategic business partners to deliver service to the people. But for the bank, arising from your response, Honourable Minister, but for the banks, what other strategic partners have the department identified to build on the partnerships with the partnerships we have identified to assist the people to expand this service which is needed? Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Honourable Nkonyana. Honourable Minister, your response.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair, and for the question. Yes, it doesn't have to end with banks. You're absolutely correct. I think I'm emphasizing the things that we can do in the immediate future, because those would already be game changers. If you go to a rural community and you find you can walk into a bank branch and get your ID, it's a game changer for that community. I was recently in Umgeni, where it's a non-modernized Home Affairs office. So you can only get a green ID book there. You can't even get the smart ID. You can't get your passport at that Home Affairs office. So imagine if you can introduce that capability across South Africa. then we start really moving towards being able to say that the green ID book must now be replaced by smart IDs, because we know the fraud, the identity theft that is related to the green ID book. These are all the things that I am confident in the immediate journey that we're on. But you are right, Honourable Member, that it can go beyond that. And ultimately what we need to think about is financial services more broadly in South Africa. If you look at a country like Kenya, the M-Pesa system, the way in which people use their mobile phones for a huge number of services, including government services, I think South Africa can get there too. Think about how many retailers there are in South Africa that now offer financial services. You can go to big supermarket chains and you can actually do financial transactions. So that's why I think the other key partner for us is the South African Reserve Bank. We'd like to engage with them to say, how can we build a digital ID that's going to help you to clamp down on money laundering and all these kind of issues by being able to identify transactions. We think that can assist with the grey list issue, because we are able to move away from cash and into this more digital economy as well. But beyond that, when it comes to services to people, the sky is really the limit. We've got very advanced cell phone companies in South Africa. We've got advanced retailers. We've got an advanced financial services industry. So if we can get it right with the banks, I think there are indeed many other partners that we would be keen to speak with. But I don't want it to be pie in the sky. I don't want it to be some vision that never happens. That's why I'm quite focused on getting these initiatives now to happen in this year with the banks, and I think that'll build confidence, and then we can start those other conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Gerige.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Minister. It is widely reported that the Department of Home Affairs suffers shortages of staff, expertise, and infrastructure. We note that you are trying to introduce a turnaround strategy, but still fall short in many instances. Subsequently, service delivery to the general public is either delayed or inadequate. What steps have you taken recently to review the staff complement or organogram of the department? And what steps have you taken to increase and train your staff complement in order to deliver effective services? Also, what areas in your department do you consider as critical where there's a budget challenge to deliver effective services? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Gerike. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, through you, Chair. Let me indicate that the issue of the organogram, or really the organizational structure, is front and center. We are having conversations with the University of Pretoria, and what we want to do is repurpose and reskill our staff to function in this new environment that we are building. I think it goes back to one of the earlier questions from the floor about the interaction between people and technology. And so we're very much investing into reskilling, upskilling, and looking at what should the Home Affairs staff complement look like in an environment where we have automated visa processing, for example. We know it's more secure. We know we can detect fraud. And how does that free up capacity for those officials to go and help us where we are short? And I think the most important example of this is a crisis, I would call it a silent crisis in South Africa, of undocumented South Africans. And I think people often talk about the challenge of undocumented people in South Africa, but we have to understand many of them are South Africans. These are children who are going to schools who didn't have their birth registered. I'm sure members here are interacting with communities who don't have ID documents, and they've got no way to actually prove, that they are the child of a South African, etc. But the entire community will tell you that they are South Africans. The reason this is so important to me and why I'm passionate about this is if we are going to continue along the current trajectory with the current model, we are basically making it impossible for Home Affairs to get into those complex cases, because Home Affairs is consumed by routine matters. a new ID or a new passport should be a routine thing. It's not a rocket science, but at the moment we're forcing everyone to go to a Home Affairs office. So we're basically burying our own staff under things that are very routine. If we can get those routine things out of that space, through the banks, through digital platforms, we are freeing up the capacity at Home Affairs. And I always say to members of our team that you must remember that we tell people, come to the office to apply for this ID or passport. Then we tell them, you must come back again to collect it. And every time we say that to them, we are letting them stand in the queue in front of a mother whose child isn't registered, or in front of someone who qualifies for SASSA but don't have an ID. So we're literally preventing people from getting the help that they need. So the role of technology and partnership goes way beyond just those specific functions. It is about getting Home Affairs to breathe a bit easier, to be able to say, look, it's not constant crisis anymore. And now we can go. We can identify communities. And India is a great example for us here, Honorable Chair. You know, India, within the space of a few short years, documented 1.4 billion people. They didn't have even the kind of ID system that we have today, even with its flaws. They were behind us. And they have leapfrogged way, way in front of us. And they did that because they sent people into communities. They had these little suitcases with cameras and fingerprint scanners. They went into communities, and then you do the thing that human beings have always done. You engage with the community. You say, this child, who's the mother of this child? Where's the father? You link people together. You build genealogies, and you document millions of South Africans who have been left behind. We can do that, but only if we get those routine things out of the way, and we can focus on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, to what extent has the State Information Technology Agency improved their reliability or not? And in terms of infrastructure provision at these data centers and banking institutions, and does this have an influence on this process? And do you foresee the Postbank being involved in this rollout of service delivery? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable van den Berg. Honourable Minister, your response.
Dankie, agbare lid. So, I can't report any progress. I think the AG recently appeared before SCOPA, if I'm correct, Chair, and indicated that SITA has a disclaimed audit opinion, so even the financials cannot be audited. So I think that speaks for itself. I've seen now that the President has authorized the Special Investigating Unit to investigate SITA. And I can also indicate to colleagues, one of my great sources of frustration is we recently did something very big for the country when we enabled naturalized citizens, those are South African citizens who were born in another country, as well as permanent residents, to get smart IDs for the first time. It was a huge problem, not only for those individuals, but it forced us to create more green ID books. And as I indicated earlier, there's research out there showing that the green ID is the most defrauded document in Africa. Where there's fraud, this is the document that's most often used. It says that it's 500% more prone to fraud than the smart ID. So any logical South African must support the idea that we get everyone a smart ID, it's much more secure, and we do away with the green ID. So we launched this IT reform, and there's 1.4 million people who have been forced to carry the green book, and they've been producing them every day, who can now get smart IDs. So that's a great achievement. But you know what happens next is my office gets contacted by some of the people who are very excited. For the first time, they feel like they're also South Africans now. They can get the same documents as other South Africans. And then they say, but when I go onto eHome Affairs, I'm very happy because previously I was blocked. Now I can go on, I'm logging in, I'm putting my details, and I don't get my OTP, the one-time PIN. And sometimes the one-time PIN comes 10 hours later or 24 hours later, and it basically makes it impossible. So we looked into it. It's a SITA-controlled process. So it is a visible example a practical example. We must strip away noise and politics here, talk about practicalities. Home Affairs delivers a big improvement for the country. It enables access to the online platform for more people to get smart IDs. And then we are kneecapped by a process we don't control. But guess who gets the blame? It's Home Affairs. They say, you told us you fixed it and now it doesn't work because I can't get an OTP. That's just not fair, honorable members. It cannot work like that, because then I come here and I say, but it's not my fault. You can't hold me accountable. That would be the temptation. We're not going to do that. But we are saying to you, we need everyone's assistance so that you can hold us to account. Give us control over the OTP system. And the next time it breaks, it's my fault. You can hold me accountable. But at the moment, it is an enormous source of frustration. So thank you for the question. I hope that that is an example that members will be able to carry forward with them of something that looks like a small thing, but it breaks the whole system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes question 145. We now move on to question 144 that was asked by the Honourable Gericke. Honourable Minister, your response to question 144.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair. This question relates to the IEC's work on investigating the possibilities of electronic voting in South Africa for future elections. I think the important point to make is that a discussion document on electronic voting was launched on the 10th of March. And this is a discussion document, as the name suggests. So this is really an exploratory process that the IEC is engaged in. And I think it's really important that we have public participation and for people to raise their voice around this issue and whether this is somewhere that we want to go in future. The document itself and the engagements that the IEC is having looks at two broad categories. The first one is the idea of voting station-based electronic machines. So let me just explain what that means, Chair. So instead of a paper ballot, there would be an electronic machine on which you vote. That's the one category. The other category that they're looking at is iVoting. So that would be going through the internet and actually voting on that platform. So then you don't go to the polling booth. That's basically the two categories. The document also discusses different kinds of devices that have been used around the world, and it looks at lessons from other countries. So I think if we look at the question generally, you have to take into account public engagement. You have to understand the market. You have to understand who has access, who doesn't. You have to understand the level of technology literacy, and even things like what we just discussed. Is the state itself, I mean, can you imagine a voting system and you can't get an OTP? I've just described what SITA does to us. We can't have that with our voting system. So I think this is a very constructive discussion that the IEC has now started. And I think it's important that we really get communities to engage with this. I want to be clear to members. Of course, the IEC is an independent entity, and they are always looking at ways in which we can change or improve the electoral system. But there certainly is no decision that has been made. I think it's very important that we explore issues like this in an open-minded way. I think the only thing I would really add beyond what is in the discussion document is we will probably have to think about the implications of Home Affairs digital transformation for elections more broadly. Because if we do away eventually with the green ID book, if we can get everyone access to the smart ID, if we start introducing things like digital ID, those will have implications for how we manage elections. So in principle, someone would have an ID on their phone, but they may not have the smart ID with them. Are we going to have rules that allow them to vote? You know, those are the kind of technical questions that we will have to face. But I think it's excellent that we've started early, that the IEC is contemplating the role of technology at the same time that Home Affairs is implementing some of these changes. I would not want us to arrive in a space where we've implemented a lot of these things and only then do we wake up to the implications. So I think it's a very positive discussion to have, but certainly we're a very long way away from making a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The follow-up question then comes from the Honourable Gericke.
Ja, baie dankie Voorsitter, minister, ons is bly dat u die woord discussion gebruik en dat dit nie 'n klinkklare besluit is nie. Maar u moet in gedagte hou dat miljoene landelike en plaas inwoners het nie toegang tot stemming op die dag van stemming, is miljoene mense. En as ons oorgaan na 'n elektroniese stelsel toe, moet ons ook daardie mense saamneem in die hele proses sodat hulle democratische reg kan uitoefen om te stem. Now, given that South Africa currently does not have the necessary infrastructure to support the transition to electronic voting, and that millions of our people live in rural areas without access to digital devices and internet, noting also the IEC's track record of technological failures, which we witnessed in previous elections where there were numerous malfunctions of the voter management devices, please take this House into your confidence and give us a glimpse of the model, that's important, the model that was used to arrive at the process of electronic voting and how this system will eradicate fraud and corruption in elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Gericke. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Baie dankie, voorsitter. Ek dink net die eerste punt, is oor landelike gemeenskappe. Agbare Gericke, ek dink terselfdertyd moet ons ook erken dat mense sukkel met die afstand in landelike gemeenskappe. En so, my benadering is gewoonlik, as ons dink oor 'n oplossing, moet ons beginpunt wees by hoe die situasie tans is, want ons moet toegee in baie gevalle is die situasie nie tans ideaal nie. So mense is baie keer weerstandig teen 'n nuwe manier van dinge doen, en dan sal hulle vir jou sê, maar wat van hierdie risiko en wat van daai risiko, maar 'n mens vergeet so 'n bietjie van die risiko's wat ons reeds het, en ons het 'n risiko aan mense se vermoë om deel te neem aan verkiesings as hulle te ver is en nie kan uitkom by 'n stempunt nie. But that having been said, I think the point is well made. And I think voter education is something that is essential always. So if there is a shift to a more electronic style of voting in the future, there's no dispute that it has to go along with a very strong focus on voter education. I think also that the existing systems that we use, those must be perfected. We don't want issues around those kind of voter management devices. And I think that something as basic as getting people onto smart IDs is actually going to help a lot with that. Because what you find with the green ID books, I mean, aside from the fraud risk, is it can be in a terrible condition. You actually can't see what's going on there. It's very difficult. It becomes a very manual process. So yes, I agree we must fix existing platforms and build confidence that they can work. And then finally, your question about the model. I wouldn't say there's a model per se as I say, it's a discussion document looking at different options. But I think that it is wise to start looking at what the future could look like. And, we live in an era of, I don't even think we realize how quickly things are changing around us. If you look at what artificial intelligence is capable of and how the world is shifting, the problem is we might find ourselves in a country and a society not long from now where everything is digital, especially with the younger generation. And the demand will be, but why are you still doing things in this old manual way? And I think that is why it's important for us to start early on these conversations, because the worst outcome is for young people to say, listen, I live in a digital world. I insist that I must be able to have these channels to vote. And if you're going to keep up with queues and papers, I'm losing interest. And we know that that is a risk as well. So yes, finding a balanced way forward, taking people along on whatever changes there are, they are non-negotiable. But I don't think we must kid ourselves that the manual process is the best it can possibly be. Technology can help us with some of those things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Chair. No, my apologies, Chair. I'm so sorry. There's no translation.
Yes, I've just addressed that with the
Thank you so much.
They're attending
Thank you
to
so
it.
much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Nuwe.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Minister. Of course, this subject, it's very important, and we cannot leave it to chances in terms of engaging with it. I might be asking a question that you might have addressed, but in a particular way, so that we expand in terms of touching different areas of this issue. Mainly my question centers around whether that the investigation that the IEC has gone through, will there be a training conducted for the voters, an explanation process in terms of the document you are referring to? And also on the document, how far is it being distributed or accessed by the South Africans, so that we also become aware about the processes? And then whether in your interaction with IEC, is there a light that in fact the challenges that IEC has been going through as far as electronic voting is concerned? We know the zip issue, how IEC experienced difficulties. And as you have correctly mentioned, the challenges in the rural areas, like the question is saying, indeed, in the rural areas, it's a big challenge. And I just want to end up by just adding that in terms of the service or the offices in the Home Affairs, where I'm coming from, you have got a problem of electricity and water. And once those two are not available, it means there are no services. And people will have traveled long distances to come to the offices only.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Your time has expired.
Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Minister, I think that question leans largely towards the IEC, but I'll allow you to answer what you can. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. I'm always available for Home Affairs issues, so thank you for raising it and for your constituents as well. I think, Chair, let me cheekily suggest that maybe we should look into AI for translation services, and we can resolve that problem. Let me just briefly actually respond with a question to you, Honourable Member. You're referring to that Home Affairs office. It's one office, I assume, for a large area. If it goes down, there's a problem. How many bank branches do you have in your community? I think it's more than one. And that's exactly where we want to build in some redundancy, so that you've got more options. People should have options. And, you know, I like to compare it to how a bank operates, Chair. The job of the bank is not to take your money and then make it impossible for you to get it. You know, the job of the bank is not to take your savings and say to you, you must travel 200 kilometers and then you must stand in a queue and then the system is offline and now you can't get your money. That's how Home Affairs should look at it, because Home Affairs is a bank, is a repository of your data. And in this world of 2025, that is just as valuable as currency. And that's why we see all these issues with identity fraud and why do we think people want South African passports? Because the data is valuable. It empowers them to do things that they otherwise can't do. So we need to think about how do we secure your information, how do we secure your data, but make it possible for you to interact with it more easily in your community. And that's the philosophical shift that we are working on, to say it's not a matter of, you know, walling off data and making it impossible for people to get there, because we know there are issues with that. How do we adopt that model where we say your information is secure with us, but if you pick up your phone, you're able to interact with us? I think the point about electronic voting, again, just to say there is a period until the end of September for public comment on the discussion document. So the IEC has held a big conference with stakeholders from across the country and even some international stakeholders who were sharing their experiences, good and bad, with electronic voting. And I think it's a good sign that the IEC is robustly engaging with different viewpoints on this. And then I think what remains is to make sure that through social media, through advertisements, and indeed through sessions like today, we make people aware that there is an opportunity now, before the end of September, to engage with that document. It is on the website. And let's make our voices heard and think through this problem together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable Billy has the next follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Minister, I can confirm that we were part of the exhibition that IEC had organized early in March, I think, along with my chairperson here, and the Honourable Gerike was also invited to that conference, where it was made quite clear that it is merely a concept that is being developed. And congratulations to you and IEC for starting that conversation. My question to you, and it's something that you've touched on, the role of the State Information Technology Agency, which is SITA, and perhaps just your view. I know that you've spoken about how much of it is a challenge in what you are trying to do. Maybe just your view in relation to e-voting and the system reliability, the infrastructure capacity, and cybersecurity, and or if this crucial undertaking, if ever it's done, how will this happen in terms of your view of the role of SITA and how this would, what would it mean for the country and this initiative? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Billy. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. I would need to double check, Honourable Billy, but I would think that the IEC is exempted from SITA because it is not within the public service. And I think that in and of itself is interesting, that entities like SARS, like the BMA, and like perhaps the IEC as well, they are outside of SITA. So already the idea that nothing can be done or people aren't allowed to do things more effectively on their own, it's already disproven by the fact that we do have government entities that are able to do that. So we need a holistic solution. We need a solution that creates the ability for departments who want to resolve their IT challenges to, yes, make sure that they meet the standards, that they comply with interoperability requirements. Those things are all important. But that they are not subjected to an entity that can't submit financial statements. It's not rational. So that's really all I can say on that. I mean, it's not something that's only about Home Affairs. I believe we can make huge progress on crime if we digitalize case management at SAPS. And I know the Minister has also spoken about this, has raised the issue. Why do we still have paper files? People say the docket is missing. I've never heard of a docket going missing when you've got a proper, secure online platform. So we must start with those kind of things. Our justice system itself, the way we can improve how courts operate, prosecutions. And so there's a much bigger goal here for South Africa that we have to achieve, and we can only do it through that kind of comprehensive reform. So, I mean, I understand the Minister is working hard on this. But really, I think it'll be one of the biggest things for our country that we can possibly do, is to create a more balanced environment in the IT space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Minister really covered my question in part. So forgive me for adapting my question to make it a bit more on the digitalization effort. Considering that digital literacy remains low in many parts of our country, especially in rural provinces, will the department partner with other stakeholders to conduct public awareness and digital literacy campaigns before rollout? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Farmer. Honourable Minister, your response to that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honourable Farmer, for that question. I think some of that mandate will probably fall with the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. I know that they are doing a lot of work on literacy in general. But again, it goes back to my point earlier about how much more Home Affairs could actually do if we didn't have this model where, you know, we've got staff shortages and we've got massive queues and we force everyone into the same building. You know, we're not going to get to it as long as we do things this way. So I think it's one of those things that we can, there's a whole world of opportunities that can open up once we do some of these other basic reforms, as I've discussed with the banks and the digital platforms, for those who can use it. And I think it's a really important point. South Africa has very high smartphone penetration, 90%. So, I mean, even if only half of the population is able to use a smartphone, that's half of the population you get out of the queue. So then those people who don't feel comfortable, they don't have to go and stand for days then. Then the Home Affairs office is much more accessible because you've taken those who can use the device out of the system. And I think that's really where you start seeing the win-win possibilities of doing this. And I just wish it was, you know, even quicker. And that next time I come here, I would like to really be able to say that there's movement on the bank side, and that hopefully in your communities and in your constituencies, we're going to rely on you to get this message out there. If you have a bank in your constituency that starts delivering smart IDs and passport services, I think as the local member there, it's going to be very powerful to assist people to get to use that new system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of question 144. We now move on to question 151 that was asked by the Honourable Medupi. Honourable Minister, your response to question 151.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, and to the Honourable Medupi for the question. This is an area of concern related to so-called internet cafes and people who manufacture fake or imitated documents, and how we can deal with it. So there's two parts. There's the Home Affairs part and what we are doing about it, but then there's also the broader criminal justice part. So if I start with the Home Affairs side of things, obviously our immigration enforcement unit, the inspections that it does, as well as the counter-corruption unit in Home Affairs, which is a very strong tool that we have that is assisting us. They are very much engaged with these kind of cases. But it absolutely astounds me to see the brazenness with which some of these individuals operate. I mean, they'll create fake Facebook pages using people's names and profiles, and then they'll say, here's a WhatsApp number where you can contact me. Now, of course, you don't know if it's just someone who's pretending to be able to do this so that they can basically steal money from people. But I think it is a cause of concern for us that people can basically go and advertise these things. I think people should be ashamed and scared of advertising fraudulent services or scams like this. But unfortunately, as I say, there are broader issues here in our society. Scams and abuses like this, these are big problems across the country. And the problem we have is people would sometimes say, you know, it's Home Affairs that's doing this, when in fact these are third-party individuals. They set up cafes and things, and then they say they can produce these documents. That is pure illegality. It's not even a question of whether Home Affairs is somehow responsible for this or not. Those are people that must be arrested and prosecuted for fraud. It's really that simple. So Home Affairs cannot replace the entire police and prosecution chain. We can only work with those stakeholders. But this is where that anti-corruption forum that we recently established is yielding fruits, because we have in that structure the Special Investigating Unit, we've got the Hawks, we've got the NPA, and we've got Home Affairs Counter-Corruption working together on these kind of cases. The final point to make is, I've said from the beginning that if we use these 5 years of this administration to just run around putting out fires, we're not going to fundamentally take away the cause of these fires. And so everything we've talked about today, honorable members, actually are anti-corruption measures, if you think about it. Because why can someone produce a fake green ID book? Why can someone try and produce fake certificates or all of these products? It's because they are insecure physical documents. And even if you go further and you say where there's corruption from officials, why is it possible? Because a human being, an official, has the discretion to say yes or no. That is why I'm saying when we move this onto digital platforms, exactly like we saw with tax administration in this country, we've got such a great example. You close the opportunities for these kind of operators. So what I will say to you is the day that we have South Africans using digital ID on a big scale, you'll see the disappearance of these so-called internet cafes because there will be no demand for a fake physical product. And that's where we need to get. That's why I say actually all of the things we've discussed today, whether it's immigration or civics, actually go back to our ability to close these kind of corrupt operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We have a follow-up question from the Honourable Medupi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And once more, thank you, Minister, for responding to my question. And maybe let me also appreciate our predecessors for the introduction of the anti-corruption units in the past. Thank you very much. Minister, do we have safety features of our documents? Does the safety features of our document assist in identifying them, differentiating them from the fraudulent documents, and what is done to reverse the privileges that are acquired by using these fraudulent documents? And does the department have a program to create public awareness regarding these false documents? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Medupi. Honourable Minister, your response to that question.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the things that I've observed is sometimes it's not the document itself that is manipulated. People scan the document and then they manipulate it and they print it and they say it's a certified copy. So actually what you have there is not that the Home Affairs product has been breached. The smart ID might be legitimate, but someone uses a computer to change the ID number on the computer and then they print it out as a piece of paper and they'll say this is a copy of my ID. So again, it goes to a broader societal challenge that we have. To answer the question about the documents themselves, firstly, yes, and the Smart ID has much stronger security features, and we are always looking at how we can improve that. And there are lots of subtle features on that card that if you were to take the actual card to Home Affairs, someone will be able to assist you to verify whether it's fake or not. But as I say, I think the problem actually lies more with this practice of having certified copies. And it's something we also need to think about. And I think for us, the opportunity of digital ID will help to address this. Because what is a certified copy? It's basically your ability to prove your identity in this case without having to give your smart ID away, obviously. But if we have a digital ID where you can have your phone, very much like you're able to make payments with your phone. I don't know if people have you can have your debit card on your cell phone and you just put it on the machine and it actually makes a transaction. That's what digital ID will be able to do. So then you can verify who you are with your original document. And then we can start moving away from this practice, which I think is unfortunately a very big problem, where people have seen this loophole and they know they can't fake the passport or the smart ID, but they can fake a copy of it. And I think that's a really important one we have to look at in terms of reversing the effects or where people have abused or obtained these copies or maybe specifically with actual documents. When it comes to passports, of course, those are deactivated and they are placed on the V list as non-recognized passports. And when it comes to the smart ID, It creates its own challenges when you block the ID. So members will know there have been some court cases around this where Home Affairs does pick up duplicates where someone is using the same ID number for two people. We are able to block that. The problem is, of course, then you can also impact the holder of the real ID. And so we are working on how to resolve that issue. We recently got an extension from the court for 2 years so that we can put in place a proper plan that we can block people who are actually using the fraudulent document, but the original owner should still be able to use the ID. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Pinar.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Agbare Minister, welkom terug in die huis. It's like me to hê. Minister, taking into consideration the rise of fraudulent documents, digital passports, IDs, driving licenses are undeniably part of South Africa's future. What safeguards do you suggest or are in place to ensure that this shift to digital governance is protected from abuse by both the current government and future administrations? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pinar. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, for a really useful question. Yes, this is the future, and I'm glad you mentioned passports, because one of the things that we've put into the medium-term development plan and in terms of our own planning, or let me just correct that, in our strategic plan, is to refresh the passport itself. And what you'll find around the world, unfortunately, South Africa has fallen behind on this as well, is people have what they call e-passports or biometric passports. If you were to pick up a passport from one of these countries, you'll see a little icon that looks like a camera at the bottom, literally on the front of the document. Now, we don't have that. But what that enables you to do is to store the biometric information on the passport. What that means is if someone shows up at immigration, then they are able to give their passport to a machine or to a person, and it will actually display the photo of the passport holder that's contained in the chip. And obviously, then you can have a comparison of the face, whether this is the same person. That is very useful because it means even if someone tries to manipulate the passport, what the passport looks like, the physical document, they can't get into the biometrics that's stored on the document. So it's another layer of security. So we have put that as a target to introduce e-passports for South Africa and make sure that we catch up and have this additional layer of security. And I am also hopeful that if we can do that, we can start having discussions with other countries about visa-free entry using the new passport. So that is something that we are looking at. And I think it's a perfect example of safeguards. You talk about how do we safeguard this technology, these systems. We do it by really modernizing the products themselves. But secondly, we use the best available resources. And I'll say to you again, people trust the banks with their money, literally. They use that same kind of digital infrastructure to look after their life savings. And they trust all of their tax affairs with the same technology. If you think about it, actually, we already do that. So what we as Home Affairs need to do is meet the same standard. We need to be confident that the technical capacity, the resources, the people who are actually building and managing these systems are at the same level as banks or the South African Revenue Service, so that we can have the same level of confidence that we can protect it. And I think your point about protecting it well into the future is critical. Because if you look at what happened at SARS, it was the one institution where state capture couldn't break it. And we all know the story of SARS. We all know what the Zondo Commission found. There was a deliberate attempt to break the Revenue Service, like happened with many other institutions. Why did it fail? It's because you cannot manipulate a digital system. And that is the lesson that we need to take away from that experience, that we do have the capacity in South Africa to build systems that stand the test of time. And I can tell you the way in which SARS was tested shows us the resilience of that system. We want to meet the same standard so that your information is just as secure with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We go to the next follow-up question. That comes from the Honourable Harris.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. We always shout or we always hear illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants. The reality of the Department of Home Affairs are that given that identity fraud is on the rise in the country and that VFS, Global Services, as the official visa and permit facilitation partner from the Department of Home Affairs, manage the submission process for various immigration services as well as the intake and the administrative processes of applications for permits, visas, etc. What is the total amount of money that this service provider received annually to render this service, and what measures do you, Minister, have in place to insource, because VFS are fulfilling an administrative function that are supposed to be in the Department of Home Affairs? And then also, Minister, you know the Department of Home Affairs is a joke. Yesterday, I walked at the airport and I was seeing an advert of Nando's. And you know what that advert say? You know that, you have seen it. You know what it says? Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll share it with you.
Thank you.
Don't
Thank you, Honourable
stand
Harris.
in long queues like Home Affairs.
I'm sure the Minister will tell us what the advert says.
Yes,
Honourable Minister.
it's very rude not to share a joke, so I accept the point. I love that ad because not long from now, it will backfire. The ad says that long queues are for Home Affairs. I think that's correct. I've got it saved on my phone, Chair, don't worry, because two can play that game. And that is exactly the motivation that we have to do away with that. What I've described now, firstly, if you introduce a delivery option for your passport or your ID, then you're already reducing the need to stand in a queue for a collection. And if we can then get the online applications to work, then you're reducing the queue for applications. So thank you for reminding me of it. And I have it in my back pocket for the right day. The other issue you raise, as far as I am aware, there's no contract fee. So it's not that Home Affairs pays that provider to do something. They actually, on a case-by-case basis, you pay a fee to use the facilitator. So in terms of how, I think you termed it insourcing, this is the whole problem, is that if you want to get a visa for South Africa, and you come from a country that requires a visa, like China or India, then you have to travel either to a South African mission or to VFS, where they receive the applications. And of course, that introduces delays, but also the fees that are paid there are fees that could be coming to Home Affairs. That is exactly why we're moving to online applications, so that you don't need to go to any other office. You don't need to go and pay money to travel a long distance just to submit a visa to come to South Africa. And indeed, where there are fees, those are fees that we could be using to great effect. Now, just to demonstrate to members how effective this can be, in February, we launched the Trusted Tour Operator Scheme, which is a proof of concept. It is essentially an online platform for a very small group of people, relatively speaking. It is aimed at tour groups from China and India, where these operators were struggling. They had to go to Mission or to VFS to submit group applications. There were translation problems. It was a real problem. And we couldn't get more tourists from China and India because of precisely the inefficiencies of the system. Now, since we built the TTOS, we've rolled it out with 65 tour operators who register, we vet them, they're accredited, and they share some of the risk. If there's a Chinese tourist who overstays, who's part of one of their tour groups, we will actually penalize the tour operator as well. So this has been a very good exercise for us. to see how does this work in practice. And I'm happy to share with the members that we are seeing enormous uptake and efficiency in this system, where we've got close to 10,000 tourists now who have come in a matter of 2 months, all without this kind of paper middleman issue. It's all online. And so this has demonstrated to us that it can work. Now we want to expand it through the ETA that I mentioned earlier. And so essentially, it's a win-win if we're able to build that platform, because then you don't have the inefficiencies of a paper-based system, and you also don't lose anything because it's a direct application to Home Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think Nando's will not be too happy with that. Could we go to the next follow-up question, and that will be from the Honourable Van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think maybe Honourable Aris has got the questions confused. I think she's referring actually to the next question, number 142. But concerning 151, I would like to know, does your department engage in informative media projects to eradicate the public and for them to note the difference between true and fake documents? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable Van den Berg. Honourable Minister, your response.
So we are really challenged in communications and how broadly we can go. I think that is a budget issue, but also a capacity problem in the department. So we are looking at how we can address that more broadly, because we've got a number of critical things where people need to be informed, including what I mentioned earlier, the smart IDs for naturalized citizens and permanent residents. You know, ideally, we would be able to communicate on a much larger scale with people. So it is a challenge. But I also think, as much as verification of these documents is critical, we're actually going to make a much bigger impact if we can get away from the Green ID book. I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but that's where the problem really lies, to the 90-95% of the problem. So what we've said is that we want, by the end of this year, to be in a position to stop producing the Green ID book. So for everyone, I know sometimes people get worried. That doesn't mean we're going to say you can't use it anymore, but we don't want to produce new ones, because we're trying to eliminate it. How can you eliminate something and you keep producing new ones? So that's really, I think, where most of our efforts are going. And I think the moment for communication is going to be when we start telling people there is now a deadline. I don't know when that will be exactly, but you have to move away from the Green ID to the Smart ID. We're also looking at how we can assist. We understand, financially it's difficult. So by the time we get there, we hope to be in a position to have more resources to assist. But yes, I can't say that we're doing it as big as we want to on verification. The problem also is that sometimes it's such an intricate thing to verify, because you actually have to know, the dozens of different security features of a document. So I think the best thing we can do for the country is to make sure that if someone applies for a job, or you are an employer or someone who needs to verify an identity, that when you get a smart ID in your hand, you must be able to trust that. And it will not solve everything with the copies and the things we discussed, but we need one foundation that is as good as it gets. And I think that would be the priority for right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes question 151. We now move on to question 142 that was asked by the Honourable Zulu. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. This question does relate to visas and passport applications by South African citizens who are working abroad. Let me just indicate, and it happens all the time, but let me reiterate that the Department of Home Affairs in South Africa has no role whatsoever in South Africans getting visas to other countries. Every now and then it comes up, but that is completely the responsibility of the receiving country. So that is not something that we have a role in terms of this question. But I do think what the question is hinting at is delays in South Africans living abroad who need a new passport or needs other documents. And that is a real challenge, Chair. What I found is that it can take a very long period, sometimes a year, for someone who has applied for a passport overseas to have it delivered to them on that side. The problem is, on the one hand, resources. Home Affairs does not have a Home Affairs official in every mission across the world, so we do work with DIRCO to augment capacity. Secondly, the way in which it is transported is a problem. It is transported in a diplomatic bag by DIRCO, and they wait for the bag to be full before they ship it. So it means if you've applied for a passport in Vietnam or in Australia or whatever the case may be, you have to wait until the bag is full, until it will actually arrive at the mission there. So we appreciate the cooperation and support we do get from DIRCO, but we are looking at a way in which we can change this model as well. And it is linked to the home deliveries that I mentioned earlier. My challenge to the department has been, we are working on introducing courier delivery in South Africa. What's the difference between having something couriered in South Africa and having something couriered abroad? If we're talking about South African expats, I'm sure all of them will be able to pay the fee that is associated with couriering a document from South Africa to the US or Australia or whatever the case may be. So in the interim, what we are doing is going beyond the diplomatic bag, and we are going to implement delivery to missions and to VFS offices in 9 different countries. So those countries are New Zealand, United Arab Emirates, Australia, France, the Netherlands, Germany, China, the USA, and Canada. And this is going to assist South Africans in those countries immediately, because they won't have to wait for a bag to be filled. Their passport will come as soon as it's ready, and they will collect it from the same place that they applied. This is after the model was tested in the UK, and it has proven to assist. But we don't want to stop there, Chair, because I'm not satisfied that a passport has to be delivered only to a mission or to a specific office, because people still have to travel. So what we want to do is we want to enable citizens abroad to also select a delivery address of their choosing. And they can pay for that, and they can use some of the global couriers that we're all familiar with. So that'll be the real solution, but in the interim, we are introducing that solution for those 9 countries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We go to the follow-up questions from the Honourable Zulu.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson of this August House. Minister, hi. Minister, will the minister provide a detailed breakdown of the current backlog of delayed passport and visa application for low-wage South African workers abroad? Additionally, what pro-poor measures, such as fee waivers or mobile outreach visits, will be implemented to ensure that access to essential documents is available without relying on high-speed internet and credit card facilities? Thank you very much for the opportunity given.
Thank you very much, Honourable Zulu. I think the Minister has answered the first part of your follow-up question, but I'll leave it to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I do think there are some new questions in there. I'm sorry, but you really are welcome to submit them in written form. For example, I can't tell you about exact numbers. I don't have them with me. And I just want to emphasize again, members, that when it comes to South Africans who are looking for visas in other countries, it's not something we can assist with. It is up to the other country. When it comes to the backlog of passports, of course, you can follow up and we can get you the numbers. And I think I've spoken a lot about mobile and access. So you'll forgive me, Honourable Member, that I don't want to repeat that too much. I think the main point I would make here is the visa backlog in South Africa. So people trying to get visas in this country, that is our responsibility. And we have got that down. I think there's about 2,000 left in the permanent residence category, but we have resolved that issue. And it has been enormously helpful to us because it has freed up capacity and it has reduced court cases against Home Affairs. So I'm a bit off topic now, Chair, but it's a huge thing for us because at one point we had class action lawsuits where people would say, you have not processed my application, I'm going to court, we're forming a group of people and we're going to court and we're going to get a court order against you. Over 1,600 of those. It's down by 98%. It's almost gone. That's because of the backlog that we've cleared. So just to give you a sense, when it comes to backlogs, we're very much alive to that issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We go to the next follow-up question from the Honourable Advocate Nkosi Nkonyana.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for your response. People in South Africa, wherever they live in the world, are entitled of right to delivery of these services, including the services in question. However, the delays, as you correctly considered, in delivering visas to South Africans working abroad has been reported, and it is pleasing to hear that our government continue to address this matter. Arising from your response, Honourable Minister, has there been any communication with the citizens working abroad on this matter, particularly on the measures to place in place to address the issue and eliminate or minimize any costs to them? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. So we are finalizing that intervention in the 9 countries that I mentioned. And as soon as that goes live, we will indeed inform South Africans in those locations. Obviously, those are the busiest countries abroad with the biggest populations of South Africans. But I think, Honourable Member, you make an important point that even if someone lives somewhere else, they are still South African. They are still entitled to quality services. And so that's why we don't want to stop there. We want to address this specific issue in the 9 high volume countries. But everything that we are doing around digital transformation will be available to South Africans anyway. And that really does include other countries as well. So I think it will be a real big moment for us when someone could be traveling abroad or living abroad, but they are South African citizens, and then they can go on their phone and they can apply for their passport and they can get it delivered to their house. That's exactly where we would like to end up. So we take the point extremely seriously that there's no tiers of citizenship. If you're a South African, you're entitled to these services. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Godsell.
Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, when things go well, they go really well. The plans are also encouraging, but how can somebody who is far away from home contact your office when things do go wrong?
Thank you, Honourable Godsell. Minister, your response, please.
Thank you. So, I mean, the hotline has challenges. There's just no doubt about it. And specifically when you're phoning from abroad, it's just not where it needs to be. So we do have the email address, ministerialqueries@dha.gov.za would be one of those key contact channels. And again, it goes back to my earlier point about a department that is overwhelmed, because we had a meeting with all of the nodes that interface with that specific query channel. And if you can see the volume that people have to work through to try and get responses out, it really is not sustainable. So I think when it comes to the hotline, when it comes to our ability to communicate better with the public, those are right in the pot of the changes we're making. One of the big things that we have to do that is simple once we've got things up and running is you should be able to check the status of your application online. You shouldn't have to phone someone or send an email just to query the status. And I get a ton of those emails where people say, it has been showing it is in this status for 10 months now. Can I just get an update? So I think people understand the challenges. I don't think people are unreasonable, but they do want to feel like you're communicating with them. And so in our design of the system with the banks, we have integrated from the start a tracking service so that you can see every step of the process where your application is. And I think those are routine things that are, again, going to take some of the volume off us. And the great thing, of course, is that that is accessible from abroad as well. And then I think the last point to make is Home Affairs Contact Center. I mean, they, in some cases, depending on your query, they have to go and fetch a physical file. There are people employed who move documents around a building. And you can just see, frankly, how far behind we are, that we have a contact center where someone would have to say, please hold, or I'll get back to you, because we have to go and retrieve this particular document out of a warehouse with thousands of such documents. So that's where digitization of existing documents is important, and that is an ongoing process. We're trying to start with the earliest ones more quickly, just to give you an indication of how this works. So if you were born, for example, after 2013, hopefully not anyone in this house, but if your child was born after 2013, you generally are now able to get the birth certificate more quickly because it's been backscanned. So those are more effective. So people sometimes get upset. They say, this was easy, and then maybe I wanted a marriage certificate from 1995 and it took months. It's because the one is still a paper document. What I'm trying to get at, Chair, is my earlier point that these things are all interlinked. You can't, the problem I highlighted with the OTP, it crashes people's experience. Doesn't matter if everything else works. If that doesn't work, people say it doesn't work. You can have backscanning of documents up to a certain point, but then someone wants an older document and the experience is terrible. You can have certain things that are online showing where your application status is. But if someone has to go running around a building to get your file, it's going to be a bad experience. So ultimately, all of this can be addressed once we have the system integrated and online. And, I think then we're also going to free up capacity and people will actually be able to do their jobs. That's the problem. People get upset. There are problems in Home Affairs, but there are also good people trying to do their jobs. And I'm not sure you can actually do the job if you have to run around a warehouse. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The last follow-up question is from the Honourable Cursor.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Minister, the Auditor General's 2023-2024 financial year report highlights that the delays with the issuing of visa application is mainly due to fraud and corruption, an issue which is linked with performance failures, unethical behavior, and non-compliance with legislation. One of the recommendations made is for officials who administer visa processing to be adequately trained so as to perform due diligence. In light of this, what corruption combating interventions have you taken regarding your officials' staff complement? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Cursor. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. Since June last year, we've dismissed 33 officials, I think is the current number. There are dozens more investigations ongoing. There have been 8 successful prosecutions resulting, I believe, in over 100 years in prison for people involved. And we are working with the SIU to systematically dismantle the syndicates that operate in Home Affairs. I mentioned at the launch of the Anti-Corruption Forum that my assessment is that South Africa has become a syndicated society. And it is the consequence of state capture. It is what happens when you send a message that from the highest levels of government that corruption is something that is okay. And what we've seen since then is mafias and syndicates moving in across society, whether it's the construction mafia or indeed the kind of syndicates that operate in Home Affairs. The only solution to that is to hold people accountable. And I don't have the comparison with me, but I think Home Affairs has fired more people in these 10 months than any other government department, and we will continue to do that. And we have just concluded the process to appoint a new Deputy Director General for Human Resources, and that person will work closely with the Counter-Corruption Unit to accelerate and deepen this even more strongly. So there can be absolutely no doubt that the cleanup is well underway in Home Affairs. But secondly, of course, your question in a sense also answers itself, because you refer to the AG's report from last year talking about visa backlogs and corruption and all of those inefficiencies. That's why it's so important that we've cleared the backlog, because now you don't have the space for people to say, if you want your application processed, you must pay a bribe. You actually have now a department that has processed that backlog. So in and of itself, that is a massive step forward. We continue to work with some of the experts that were on the Lubisi panel that did excellent work to analyze some of these syndicates and how they stick together. But I can indicate that those same experts are probably almost as excited as I am about our digitalization efforts, because they understand, and the report from the AG has shown time and time again, that when you have manual paper files and you've got outdated systems, that's where the gap for corruption really exists. So we're holding people accountable without fear or favor, but we're also changing the system to make it harder in future to engage in these kind of things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That concludes question 142. We now move on to the last question for the day, and that is question 152 that was asked by the Honourable Pala. Minister, your response.
Thank you again, Chair. The question relates to I think it's the previous strategic plan, 2020 to 2025, and steps to ensure secure management of international migration. So you'll forgive me, I won't be able to really speak to the previous plan, but I can speak to some of the steps that we are currently taking. Some of them I mentioned as it relates to the automated entry and exit at border posts. Our goal is to roll that out at all international airports by the end of the 26-27. Let me just revise that. Yes, I think that's correct. The midterm financial year. And then to do the same at all land and seaports by the end of this administration. And as I've already indicated, that is going to be a huge boost for security in the migration space. The electronic travel authorization is something that I think you will see coming to life within a matter of months, which will equally deal with issues like, if you recall, those Libyan nationals who were in South Africa at a training camp. They were able to enter the country on handwritten visa documents. And those are the things that we're going to start doing away with through the ETA. The advanced passenger processing system that South Africa also does possess, it enables us to screen passengers before they get on flights. And there are some innovations in that space where we need to get a little bit ahead of the curve again. It's something called a passenger name recognition system, and it enables you to track someone's travels before entering the country. At the moment, we can see who's trying to fly into South Africa, but if we can get a PNR system, we can actually see where they were before. And that helps to inform the intelligence that we have around this space. And then I think finally, Chair, just to say again, you cannot bribe a computer. You cannot bribe a computer. It is the message. And once you have a camera that you have to look into and your face either matches or it doesn't, that's how we're going to start seeing the impact of these reforms on the migration space. There's a lot more I could say, Chair, about tourism, about the work we're doing to grow that enormous opportunity for our country. And it is all dependent on a more functional immigration system. So whether you are concerned about job creation, whether you are concerned about national security, whether you are concerned about fraud and corruption, these are all issues that we are addressing in the package of reforms that we've spoken about a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We have a follow-up question from the Honorable Pala, and I believe he's on the virtual platform. Honorable Pala, your follow-up question.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable Minister, and good afternoon to honorable members. Honorable Minister, I listened to you when you say you can't speak to the strategic plan 2020-2025, but 2025, the goals, 2025 goals are what you're supposed to be doing now, Minister. Minister, how does the non-fulfillment of our international commitments affect our standing as a country in the global arena? That's the first question. The second question is that why is the white paper that was approved by Cabinet not implemented? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pala. Honorable Minister. Normally it is one follow-up question, but there was two here. But it's up to you whether you want to answer both.
Thank you, Chair. We are developing a supplementary white paper that will bring in the technological reforms that are absent from the current version of the white paper, and that is also aligning the white paper with the priorities of the Government of National Unity. So that is really a work in progress, and it is something that is going to enable us to really have a legal framework that links with the kind of systems that we are currently developing. Because the worst thing we can have is if we adopt laws that will be incompatible with things like digital ID or with the ETA. So we have to make those changes, and that is a process that's underway. Chair, the question of non-fulfillment of international obligations is a very broad one, and I'm a bit pressed to try and respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Pinar.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, I don't know if it's serendipity or fate, but I just received my SMS from your department to say I can collect my passport, and I applied last week Tuesday, so hats off to you. Thank you very much for that. Minister, considering that tourism contributes nearly 9% to our GDP, with significant portion coming from overseas visitors, what steps is the Department of Home Affairs taking to increase the number of visa-free countries tourists that can visit South Africa to further contribute to the economy and, of course, as always, job creation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pinar. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, as well as for the great feedback. I must say that we are seeing improvements in efficiency in that space. So the turnaround times on passports and smart IDs generally is in a good space. It's more the communication and the IT systems to alert people that's still giving us challenges. So thank you for that feedback. I think on the tourism side, thank you for raising that, because we cannot look at migration as only one thing. It has different components. It obviously has the national security component, but it also has a critical economic role to play. So I've touched on things like one-stop border posts and automated entry and exit as general mechanisms to increase efficiency. But you are correct that the visa regime itself obviously also has an influence on which countries are able to travel to South Africa more easily. So we have obviously identified China and India as our two biggest potential source markets. They are not visa exempt. And as I mentioned earlier on, the Trusted Tour Operator Scheme has demonstrated to us the enormous demand there actually is from those countries to visit South Africa. So my goal really is to say to you, I would like us to get to a stage where for a legitimate traveler, for a legitimate tourist, there should be very little difference in their experience, whether they are from a visa-exempt country or not. What I mean by that is The difference at the moment is if you come from a country that does not require a visa, you're able to make your booking and you get your visa on arrival when your passport is stamped. It's a very seamless and easy process. If you come from a country like India or China or many others, you have a very tedious process. You have to travel long distances. You have to go and stand in a queue at a South African mission. You have to submit a physical application. And then you have to hope that it's processed in time. And we know of tourists who've missed their flights because the flight left before they got the outcome of their visa. So if we can get the ETA to work, as I think we are going to do within a matter of months, it's going to start with tourism. And people applying for a tourist visa from those countries will have an experience that is on a par with someone who is from a visa-exempt country. The difference, of course, is we're going to have much greater security in being able to check who the people are that are applying. But for the user, it's going to be a very seamless experience. A country like Kenya already does it, and it is amazing. You can get your visa within an hour or two. Once we deliver that, I think we will move away from the old paradigm of visa exempt or non-exempt in the tourism space, because people are going to have a very similar experience. We're going to use technology much more smartly to block those people we don't want to come and who don't meet our legal requirements. But for everyone else, that's going to be a dramatic improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair of the Day. Honourable Minister, given that Home Affairs is the only department with the authority to manage international migration, yet has in the past failed to cope with a number of challenges with respect to migration. In light of this, what management system have you created that will balance the need for immigrants against high unemployment and poverty? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Kennedy. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you, Chair. So towards the end of last year, we published some regulatory reform that really addressed both parts of your question when we created the points-based system for work visas. And what that does is it creates a very transparent point scale to make sure that if someone applies for a work visa in South Africa, they can only get it if they meet the requirement of 100 points. So you add up the points in a number of different ways. You get a certain number of points for your qualifications. You get a certain number of points for the salary that you will get. Obviously, if someone is paid a higher salary, that is an indication that they are valuable to that company, and it protects people on lower wages. And you can also get points for if you speak an official language or if you are being employed by a company that is registered with the Trusted Employer Scheme. So that reform has really, I think, introduced a lot more transparency and accountability into the system to make sure that we get the skills we need at the top of our economy. Because we know that we have a shortage of certain skills right at the top. And if we can get those people in, they are going to create a lot of jobs for the kind of lower skilled workers that you are referring to. At the same time, the system, because of the clear points threshold, if you can't get to 100 points, you can't get the visa. And that is a way to really protect the lower wage workers in South Africa. So that would be one example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Peter.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of this House. Good evening, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, our country is in a mess of anyone who may enter or go. Following the recent deployment of drone surveillance technology by the Border Management Authority as part of your department's efforts to secure South Africa's border in line with its 2020 or 2025 strategic plan, I would like to ask you, Minister, are there any rapid response teams in place to act effectively when drones detect attempted illegal borders crossing? B, what is the average reaction time of a border management authority officials and relevant law enforcement agencies from the moment a drone identifies suspicious activity to the point of interception or apprehension? The last one, Minister. What motivated the border management authority officials to perform their duties without any favor to anyone who may want to bribe for crossing? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Peter. I saw that there were 3 questions there, but I'll leave it once again to the Minister if he wants to respond to all.
Thank you, Chair. The questions are quite veering off in different directions, but I'll do my best. I think the question on the response teams is a very important one. I would say to you that by using remote surveillance, we have actually turned all border guards into reaction teams. Because in the past, you would have had the border guards being the surveillance. In other words, these are people driving around the border fence, the area of the BMA's authority, and they have to physically detect if someone is trying to come through. And so most of the time was actually spent on surveillance, not on enforcement. But now that you have the technology to do the surveillance for you, the job of the border guards is to respond, react, and enforce. And so that has been a change wherever we've used these tools to the way in which the BMA operates. Of course, my biggest point would be, as I said earlier, I wish we had so many more of these tools. But I think what has happened is we've managed to also demonstrate the concept. It works. We know how to use it. We've got trained people in South Africa who can fly these things for us, as I mentioned earlier, young, smart people who are tech savvy. And I think if we can build on that, we're going to end up in a space that does make a significant difference. But Honourable Chair and Honourable Peter, I have said from the start, and this is one thing you can always double check, there is no magic wand. If someone tells you that tomorrow I'll snap my fingers and the problem is gone, they're lying. You need real, sustained reform over time to deal with this problem. So when we say that we have seen an 18% increase in the number of deportations, as we saw in the last year, we've now gone over 46,000 in the last financial year. That's the highest in 5 years. That's one sign. It's an indication of getting there. When we say that the number of people we are detecting who are trying to come illegally over the festive season, for example, because of drones, that has increased by 215%. It's another sign. We're getting there. But the truth is, it is a sustained effort. There's not one silver bullet that fixes everything in one go. And I think the measurement for the BMA, for the work we're doing, is, are we moving in the right direction? That's the measurement. If the answer to that is yes, then we're succeeding. If the answer to that is no, then we are failing and we have to reevaluate some of these interventions. At the moment, I can tell you, we've just finished on the Home Affairs side. You talk about things being a mess. We've just finished the review of the previous year's financial year's performance, and it is a dramatic increase in terms of our ability to meet targets. These are all the signs that I think are adding up to a sense that things are now finally moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, I'd like to, on behalf of the NCOP, thank you very much for your presence in the House. We always appreciate your being here and the forthright manner in which you respond to the various questions, although some, as you said, go in different directions. But it shows that honourable members of this House are alert to what is happening in our communities and they are seeking answers. So once again, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Honourable members, that I would like to also thank the honourable MECs and all permanent delegates and special delegates for availing themselves for this sitting. That concludes the business of the day, but I want to ask honorable members to please remain seated as there will be some announcements that's going to be made. I now adjourn the House. Thank you.
Recording stopped.